Looking in a distance and dreaming of a world for us. When the moon's alive, we'll map out a journey for you and I. For you and I. In the night, I'm alone. Without you, I'm drifting out. When you take my hand, I'm so high up, I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. I'll never land. And I'll never land.
Everybody wanna be on top. I don't think they know what that means. Once you get there, then you can't stop. Everybody gunning for your spot, aiming at your team. I'm up all night, chasing dreams. Everything changed when you go from seeing it on big screen to behind the scenes. Lean the song like it's the light that lead, huh? You know the rich and famous kill theyself to stay rich and famous. Very same thing that they built their name with, be the same thing that they be enslaved with. So I don't want rap, you can have that. I don't want the crown, yo, I'm aiming past that. Heading for another throne, can't have.
On this episode of the Wilkinson Central Show, we're going to break down the top 10 in both 1A and 1AA and how accurate my power rankings have been and how amazing Colorado is. I don't mean to toot my own horn, maybe I do. We also have Awags coming on to join the show. He's going to discuss the first half of his game today, which was the craziest thing I have ever seen happen in What If Sports. So we're going to get to that. We've got a lot more to get to. It's going to be a fun show. Thanks for sticking with us. This is the Wilkinson Central Show, and we start right now.
All right, here we go. He'll run it out to the 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game.
Dobbs, drops back, looks, loads up, fires on for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught by Tennessee. Tennessee wins! Caught it by Tennessee, Jawan Jennings. Jennings makes the catch in the end zone on the Hail Mary. I don't believe I saw that. To the right, Bennett to tight end left. Second and goal to go from the 2. Toss sweep right for James White. Cuts it under the right arm, cuts it upfield. Driving forward, diving to the goal line. A touchdown and a title for the Patriots.
I can't believe it.
They have completed the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history.
This is the Wilkinson Central Show. We are starting right now. Thank you for hanging out with us. It is absolutely wonderful to be back on this Saturday night as we approach the end of 2017 and we sit in the middle of season 138. You know, that intro I put together for the Saturday 6 podcast that I do with my co-host of the other podcast that I do. And one of the things I like about it is I took 3 games that I watched, and I remember watching it getting chills as I watched those games. I remember Auburn and Alabama. Friend at the game, he's sending me like videos of what's going on. I just could not believe what was happening. Last year's Super Bowl, obviously the most unbelievable comeback, and you know, people always talk about the comeback, but that last play was just so incredible. And then that Tennessee-Georgia game, which people don't talk about as much anymore, but that to me was one of the most unbelievable last couple of minutes in a game I've ever witnessed. So I took those 3, and the reason I'm talking to you about it now is because when I started doing all the media content for Wilkinson, the goal that I had in mind was I want you to feel like you have your own headset on, and I want you to feel like, you know, this is your program. Like, you're not just coaching the Alabama Crimson Tide if you're Awags, but this is Awags' team. Like, you look at that team and it's got his fingerprints all over it. He's got his up-tempo offense. You know, he's doing his weird thing with the tight ends, and it's quirky, it's weird, it's fun, it's up-tempo, and they score a lot of points. And I wanted to kind of give a personality to everybody that plays the game. And I'm not going to take credit for everything that's happened, because obviously there's been great people like just the guy, true devil. Awags has been a huge part of it. Chetty's done a fantastic job with the Hall of Fame and the Coach of the Year awards, and there are a number of other people I could throw in there as well. Husker's been a huge help. GT Deuce, obviously, with the media guides he has done. And that to me is always one of my favorite things, because it feels like Phil Still's release of his magazine before every football season is kind of what the media guides feel like to me. And so I just want to thank all of you guys for making this what it is, because I really do feel like as we're in the middle of season 118, 8 games in, this thing is a lot of fun. And you can kind of start to see this season take shape. You can kind of see everybody's team starting to, everybody putting the final touches on their team. I mean, you look at USC and you kind of know what you're getting. You've got a really balanced attack, offensively and defensively, and they're shutting some teams out. They struggled a little bit today with California, only up by 3 at the half against a team that's now 3-5. So you look at USC, they look good right now, but they've also been known to fall apart. And then you also wonder, with USC, is the rest of that schedule tough enough to put them into the national title? Because I could make the argument now that Notre Dame and Nebraska are going to have an improved strength of schedule, and they're already right on USC's tail. The thing I love about this game is that it is not beholden to head-to-head results. Now, I obviously, you ask, well, why do you play the game? And head-to-head is certainly a major component of it, but I think if this were real life, a lot of people will look at Notre Dame and USC and be so restricted to that one game that they wouldn't give Notre Dame a chance. But if you're honest with yourself and you look at how Notre Dame has played in their past 4 games, this, in my mind, is absolutely a championship caliber team. And should they win out and win the Big Ten, they deserve a shot to play for the title. I think the same thing with Nebraska, who right now is undefeated. You look at their non-conference, not great. Certainly did not take many risks this season. Played West Virginia, won that one by 17. Played Cal. He went with their other weak non-conference. But then he got the gauntlet in conference schedule. Had to play Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Texas, and blew right through Oklahoma. Smoked Texas A&M, and then today played Texas, and Texas gave them a game, but that is a very talented Texas team, and like I've said before, you get these statistical anomalies every once in a while where you're going to be 2 games better than you actually are per season, and you're going to have 2 games every season where you're a little bit worse than you actually are. And so I think this was Nebraska underperforming a little bit. They've got Missouri tomorrow. And that one, boy, you talk about the importance of that game for Missouri. If they lose that one, and then I beat them as well, Missouri's looking at a 6-7 finish, and potentially missing out on a bowl. That is absolutely incredible, because Missouri, not but 3 seasons ago, season 135, won the Big 12. So that just goes to show you how tough things are, and you look at how good some of these teams are, it would not surprise me at all if 2 or 3 of these teams on the top 10, 2 to 3 seasons from now, are a complete flip of where they are right now. It is very, very fun to watch. The other thing I look at too, I have thrown this theory out before, that when we get into the winter months and things get colder, some coaches get drastically better. I think the seasons and the temperatures affect things because you're inside more. For instance, Justin mentioned he doesn't have softball season going on as much anymore. So he's honed in right now. He's completely zoned into this game. The same goes for me a little bit, probably not as drastic as him, but I'm a little bit better in the winter than in the summer. And I think the same is for a lot of other coaches. So this right now, if you can win in between November and March, you can find a way to win Wilkinson. That to me is when it's the most impressive, because you're getting everybody at their best. And I'm going to give you my top 10 on both divisions, both 1A and 1AA. Then we're going to bring on Awags and get into a lot of this. So in 1A, I've been posting this on Twitter every day. If you haven't been following along, go to twitter.com/WESPRN to follow all of the Wilkinson Central information. So 1A right now, I have USC first. Syracuse is second. Nebraska is third. At fourth, I put Alabama. Notre Dame at fifth. Penn State at sixth. LSU at seventh. Colorado at eighth. Rutgers at ninth. And Florida I have at 10th. I look at that list. I honestly feel very confident about that top 10. I do not think Fresno State, Navy, or UCLA really belong. The only team I would question a little bit is whether or not I'm appropriately leaving out Michigan. Michigan is the one team I think you could really, really make an argument for. But my issue with them is they've only played 4 human opponents, and 2 of which aren't even in the top 30. That's Boston College and Miami, and they struggled with Boston College. Now, they beat Texas A&M, and that's nice. They beat them by 20. That's a good win. But then they lost to Notre Dame 61-35. So I look at those 2 games. I consider that a wash. And if you remove those 2 games, you're looking at a 7-point win against Boston College. I don't know. That to me does not look as impressive as other teams in my top 10, but I do think they have a real argument, and I do think if we were being serious tomorrow, they played any of these teams in the top 10, I think Michigan could give them a real run. So I think Michigan's awfully close, but that was my reasoning for not putting them in there. Penn State, I know Wiss has them at 25th. I think that is absolutely a disgrace. Like, look at who's around Penn State at 25th, Virginia at 24th, and Central Michigan at 26th. You cannot tell me that if one team played Virginia tomorrow or they played Penn State tomorrow, they wouldn't have a significantly better chance to beat UVA. UVA is undefeated. They played a crappy schedule, which is ranked 105th in the country. Penn State has played a tough schedule, which included a close loss to Oklahoma, and they did get blown out by Alabama. But they also smoked South Carolina, smoked Cal, and smoked Miami, Florida. They are going to run right through their conference. Their only loss potentially coming to Notre Dame, and it would not surprise me at all if Penn State found a way to beat Notre Dame and win the Big Ten. So there is your 1A top 10. Again, USC 1, Syracuse 2, Nebraska 3, Alabama 4, 5 is Notre Dame, Penn State 6th, LSU 7th, Colorado 8th, Rutgers 9th, Florida 10th. You can tell me where I'm wrong or right in the chat. Let's go to 1AA real quick, and then we will bring Awags on. At 1AA, I have Texas Southern 1st, Marist 2nd, Jacksonville State 3rd, Texas State 4th, Northern Iowa 5th, Jacksonville 6th, St. Mary's 7th, Stephen F. Austin 8th, Villanova 9th, and at 10th, the newcomer, Arkansas Pine Bluff. I think you have to put in your top 10 right now. One of the teams I lowered today from yesterday, because most of 1AA has honestly stayed the same, but I did lower Villanova. I just don't know if that team is for real. And I know they beat Cal Poly by a good bit. Cal Poly probably doesn't get into playoffs, so right there on the bubble at 35th. They did beat Florida Atlantic handily, and that's nice, and they beat a good Maine team. That's nice, and today they beat New Hampshire. But I just don't like the way they're winning some of these games. I don't think they would make it to quarterfinals if playoffs started tomorrow. But it is a very good team, and that's why I put them in the top 10, because they belong in the discussion. Arkansas Pine Bluff right now, I look at this team, their only loss is to Texas State, and it was by 3 points. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with Texas State, really took him to the wire. They blew out Norfolk State, blew out Robert Morris. Those are 2 bubble teams. So that to me proves, okay, well, they're certainly not anywhere near a bubble team. They did struggle, though, yesterday with Alabama A&M. That one went to double overtime, and Arkansas Pine Bluff just pulled it off, which is why I didn't put them in my top 10. I looked at that and I'm like, that's too close for me. But I've gone and I've looked at this roster, and you look at the rest of their schedule, they maybe lose to Texas Southern, although I think it'll be close, and I think they will absolutely destroy Grambling State. Grambling State is the one team right now I am not buying. They are 8-0. Their wins are against St. Mary's, who's good. That is a good win. It was by 5 points, so that's still a nice win. They beat Duquesne by 9. Duquesne's not going to make it to playoffs. They beat Norfolk State. Norfolk State will not make it to playoffs. And they beat Alabama A&M by 7, and that's not a playoff team either. The rest of their games are against Sims. So I just don't trust Grambling State in playoffs. I've seen this team before, and I know 2 seasons ago they were okay and made it into the second round, but they have not made it past the second round since, oh my gosh, I've got to go way back, since season 85. So I'm not going to put them in my top 10 because I don't think they've got a chance at making it past the second round. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of this break, we will bring on Awags. So I want to put you guys on a 2-minute break, and while you are on this break, I'm going to let you listen to a prank I pulled on Clay Travis. Some of you guys can catch his show on Fox Sports. I called in as a guy named Bob from Pensacola and used a different voice. It's pretty funny. Some of you may have heard it already, but here you go. The other side of this, we will have Awags.
Reacting to a big article in the Wall Street Journal this morning that will get much media attention across the nation, and it's looking at why NFL ratings are down. I tweeted out a graphic, ratings down substantially, nearly 20% if you combine the declines in 2016 and 2017. Why is that? Open phone lines, 877-996-6369. We go first to, I believe, Bob in Pensacola, Florida. What's up, Bob?
Yes, thank you, Clay. So the real reason NFL ratings are down is because the actual average height of NFL players has decreased over the past 5 years from 6'2.5" to 6'1". And so because they're shorter, because they're shorter, they're actually harder to see on TV.
So you think ratings are down because players are shorter?
Correct. Ratings are down because players are actually shorter. It's a significant decrease.
It's the most remarkable call we may have ever gotten. Is that actually true? Are players shorter in the last 5 years? How would you even find that data?
Oh, I have an Excel spreadsheet of every NFL player in football right now on my computer.
And you've been comparing their heights for the last 5 years?
Every single year.
Why do you think players are shorter now?
Copy, Clay.
Yeah, you can email me a copy.
They are shorter.
Why do you think they're shorter?
Because you've got all these slot receivers. Like, players like Jamison Crowder should be banned from the NFL. You're 5'8" nothing. You shouldn't be playing at a game that's this physical.
Appreciate the call. I don't even know if this is a real, I don't even know. Real call? I have no idea. I'm actually kind of curious on if players are shorter now. What an unbelievable statistic that would be. Have players in the NFL shrunk by 1.5 inches in the last 5 years? It's actually interesting data. I don't know. I mean, what people are getting shorter? I have no idea.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Some people are saying that's definitely not me. It absolutely is me. The best thing about that, though, and I can send you guys a link to the full podcast so you can listen to everything there. But the best part about it is that 25 minutes later, as he's wrapping up his show, his assistant comes back and says that's actually true. The average height of running backs in particular had shrunk by around that exact amount. I had not looked any of that up. Of course, I was just calling in with complete bullcrap, but I thought it was pretty good. So there you go. Joining us now is the infamous Awags. He's a regular on our show and on True Devil's show. Awags, thanks for joining us this evening.
Hey, your last check didn't clear, so I'm hoping that, when you send me a check for this show, that it'll work, and we probably just better go on a cash basis from now on.
Duly noted. So you said you wanted to talk 1AA when you came in here. So you're now in 1AA, so you're paying a little bit of attention to that. I should be in there in a couple of other seasons with my definitely hidden ID. You're at Cal Poly, so give us a scoop on 1AA. What is it you wanted to get out about that division?
All right. Well, I think because you haven't been there for a little while, and this is probably your longest stretch ever, not going back to 1AA, that you're a little out of touch, and your rankings, I'm just not following them. Villanova, number one, is for real. Villanova's beaten good coaches and good teams. They're undefeated. I don't know how much more you want them to do.
I mean, I have them 9th, so it's not like I have them that far down the list.
You're questioning whether they belong. They belong in the top 10. There's no question. And, I mean, my question, though, is what's left for them to do? He beat Cal Poly. I mean, how many people do that? But in all seriousness, forget about Cal Poly because they're actually awful. But he beat Chetty, Robman. I mean, these are good wins. So,
no, they're good wins.
In the armor there.
But I also look at coaches and how they fared in playoffs before. And I mean, Cass, when he was at Villanova before, only had 2 runs to the quarterfinals. That's it. So if you're ranking him anywhere above 9th, you're betting on the unusual to happen. And that's what I'm not going to do. No, I think he's capable. I think he's got the roster in place and the pieces in place. But if I look at past history, I don't think that is a top 8 team right now.
I think it is, and Cass is back at his home where he belongs, and you just got to trust the process. Secondly, I think there was a huge miss on your top 10. How'd you leave out Dayton? Now, I haven't been around 1AA, and I really don't know why you're laughing. I didn't even recruit for my own team. I had someone else do it. And I plugged a game plan in, and I'm letting it go, so I don't really pay attention. But what I do know is everybody's always talking about Dayton and how much talent they have and how the best recruiter is there. So how can they not be in the top 10? I'm pulling him up now, and he's 7-1.
Sense. Okay,
he's 7-1.
He's 7-1.
His only loss is to Texas Southern, who is a monster program that's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 titles in the last 8 years. You can't blame him for that loss.
Okay.
And then look, he's beaten everybody else. He beat Andrew 5-9-7-5.
Who has not been to playoffs, by the way, in 1AA and Wilkinson, and he's been at South Carolina State for a while.
It's tough to get in the playoffs, but he's going to play Mr. Mojo tonight and show everyone where it's at. Drake's a good program. Mr. Mojo's a good coach, even though it's his first year.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Drake wins that one by double digits. I'm going to say anywhere between 10 to 17.
If that happens, it's just because Mr. Mojo is one of the best coaches ever.
Well, let's hope he brings his mojo.
Dayton's a top 10 program. I pull up the guest reports. Guest report says Dayton's top 10. So
if
you don't believe B. Hayes, you don't belong in the game. All right, is that enough 1AA talk?
Yeah, that's enough 1AA talk. Or so let's get to what I thought was the craziest thing I've ever seen happen in the game. Not just Wilkinson, like anything I've ever seen in Blood of Sports. It was the craziest statistic I've ever seen. So today you're playing South Carolina, and this is kind of what spurred me to do the podcast. I'm like, I can't miss this. I go to look at your half against South Carolina, and I don't typically pull up box scores, but I put up yours for whatever reason, and could not help but notice your first half yardage was 10 yards, and your only touchdown was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So holler at the special teams. But what in the heck was up with that? You're the offensive guru in this game, and only 10 yards. I've never seen that before.
Well, I'm going to tell you, number one, special teams almost blew that game for me because that kick return that kept my offense off the field. And I was after my first 3 and outs, I was about to get on there and do like a 90-yard drive in 10 minutes and wear out his defense and then set up my second half where I just blow him out. But we have to go return it for a touchdown, and then I do another 3 and out after that, lost 8 yards on my next drive. So in the first half, I had like 4 minutes time of possession, and I don't know. How many yards did I have? 10?
10 total yards. I've never seen that in half. I mean, like it's even.
Special teams, they blew that game almost, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, with the way your offense works, you kind of install the snowball effect, and if the snowball doesn't start forming, it can fall flat really quick and melt away. But the interesting thing about that game was you still only ended with 274 yards. You only had the ball for 18 minutes, 1 for 9 on third down, and yet you scored 42 points. So you got it going there in the second half.
Yeah, once I sat special teams on the bench and told them to take knees and call fair catches, we were good.
All right,
so moving the ball, I had to make some adjustments, and I don't like to do that. I kind of just like to, grip it and rip it, and maybe 2 seasons later, check in on the game plan, see how it's going. But I actually had to change my offense and my defense. Big pain in the ass. Trey's always a pain in the ass, and he always makes me make adjustments.
Well, this would be the one, and I don't. Like, I'm not saying this to get on to you or like kind of take a jab at you or anything. I think every coach in this game has some Achilles heel, and I think with the way you put your offense together, your one Achilles heel would be weird or quirky teams like Trey Omo or Jason Freeman, for example, install, because you're the person who puts together the game plan maybe in the off season, and then after that you're just gonna rip it and let's see what happens. But these are coaches who go into the intricate details of putting together their game plans from game to game, and a team like South Carolina, they install that time of possession game, and that can really catch up to you and cause an upset.
Well, the thing is, Trey's beaten me 5 times in this world, and
he's not an elite, and you are.
Right. I mean, he's had great success with me. He's run the ball no matter what I've done. 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember. I mean, I was going to the national championship game. All I had to do was beat him for the second time in the SEC title game.
I do remember that.
I beat him the first time by 4 touchdowns, I think.
Yeah.
But, I thought I had him figured out. I had like 2 wins in a row, and then boom, pulls the rug out again. So this time, no fooling around the second half. I made some real adjustments, and they worked good enough, at least. Slowed him down.
Now, I gave my top 10 earlier. I think right now, and I think the top spot is very, very close. I gave mine earlier. I think USC right now is the best team in the country, and it's closely followed by Syracuse, Nebraska, and U. And I think Notre Dame also is very much in this discussion as well. Where does that sit with you? What would be your top 10 right now?
Well, the only ones that matter is the top 2. So I'd say USC and Syracuse are my pick for the top 2.
So we agree on that.
Freeman number 3, and then I think I'm number 4.
Yeah, so you and I are right on. We agree all on the top 4 exactly.
Well, you know what's funny, though? You had me number 2 like twice in a row, even though I had that loss. And then I beat a Hall of Fame coach by like 110 points, and you dropped me like 5 spots. And I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Well, it's not. It's again. See, this is what people get confused about with rankings. Is they always think, what did this team do wrong, or what did I do wrong to drop in rankings? It's not that. Nebraska 4 days ago, I did not think was this good. Now, I thought they were good. I thought they were top 10. I did not think they were the second or third best team in the country. Now that they've beaten Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Texas, and you look at the rest of their schedule, I think they probably went out even against me. That to me looks like
50.
Well, he might. His offense tends to go off on me. Although I'm 2-1 against them so far, so knock on wood. You look at what he's doing. I think right now he's the third best team in the country. So it wasn't like I was looking at you and thinking anything less of your team. I'm just looking at Nebraska and I'm looking at Notre Dame and I'm like, these are some really good teams right now.
You can understand how I feel, though. I beat a Hall of Fame coach by 109 points, and you dropped me a bunch of spots. When you actually left me there when I got my loss, so.
Okay, we really going to call Vanderbilt your signature win?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's V. Howard, man. It's not the Commodores. It's V. Howard. That's a real guy.
They're all real guys, unless it's a Tiger Park account.
Yeah, well, half of Leahy's Tiger Park's account.
So you and I agree on the top 4: USC, Syracuse, Nebraska, Alabama. Let's go to number 5. I think Notre Dame's the 5th best team in the country, and then I think it's Penn State. Where would you sit with that?
Have they played?
No, they play later in the season. They're in the same division, so interdivisional play starts tomorrow.
Right. I think Penn State's better than Notre Dame.
Really? Okay. Now, why is that?
I just think they have better players. And, I mean, both coaches do a great job. I mean, like you said, now that Justin CFB is engaged, all of a sudden he's not getting fired at Notre Dame anymore, and he's within a game of national championship. So I think Penn State's got a little better players.
Penn State is really, really deep. That is the one thing.
Notre Dame, I've been playing him every year, and then he didn't accept for this season, so I think he thought he was going to make a run for the title this year, so he kept me off the schedule so I wouldn't beat him.
That's why I never put you on my schedule.
That, and I mean, you like to pat yourself on the back and talk about how you're undefeated and good, but you won't play like championship level teams.
Oh, you mean like so Ohio State's not good and Minnesota's not good?
Ohio State's ranked 17th at 7-1. So his schedule's not that great. Minnesota's where he's supposed to be. He's in the top 25. Just like you.
Hey, I'm 6th.
You're the Minnesota of the West.
The Minnesota of the West. I'm pretty sure I beat him by 41 points. So
yeah,
I don't know if you could call
You're
us
the Big
equals.
12's Minnesota.
The
Solid
Big 12's
program.
Minnesota. All right, so let's go conference by conference. Let's look at the ACC real quick, and I like doing this with you. I've got real concerns about the ACC because, for one, Boston College, who I consider the elite without the tagline, is 4-4 and 38th in the country. That probably doesn't get you into level 3 ball when it's all said and done. Miami's not ranked; they're 5-3. The only 2 teams that are ranked are Florida State at 13th and UVA, who I don't trust at all, at 24th. This has got to be a big problem when we get into recruiting, right? Because they're only going to get a 1 level 5 team and maybe a 1 level 4 team, if that.
ACC's had problems with bowl money for a long time, so that's nothing different. And just the fact that the SEC has gained teams in the past couple years, the Big East is crowded, even though they lost 2, but I mean, it might be harder for them to compete, but we'll see what happens. I like where the SEC's going, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that SEC right now, this has definitely been a good season for you guys. I look at Miami, little
who
worried
do you
about.
Think's going to win the ACC?
Who do I? I mean, I think you have to go Florida State. That to me feels like the most obvious. Well, I think UNC is a good chance.
I like UNC. I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, that team was very difficult to game plan for because he changes things up and it's a very unique system. I honestly, that game between him and UVA, people need to watch that game because UVA also runs a very unique system. But if UNC can get through that, I think they'll beat Miami, and then they would end 11-1, and I think they could easily go toe-to-toe with FSU.
Yeah, I think it's anybody's conference right now. Nobody's really eliminated, and nobody's really separated themselves. So
yeah,
that might be the most fun to watch because there's really, I'd say, 6 teams in it.
Yeah. Well, it should be noted, Florida State has played 4 elites: Florida, Tennessee, LSU, Miami. Their 2 losses on the season are to Florida and Tennessee. Tennessee lost was by 3 points. They beat LSU, who right now is ranked 5th. And then they also played South Florida, coached by Ebel, and won that one. So he has not gone with an easy schedule by any means. And they should, they've got Boston College tomorrow, so tough one there. Florida State should win out, and that's going to be a very nice 11-2 team. But that and a ranked UNC or UVA team, that's it for the ACC. I mean, that is it. So I would really put caution with that conference when it comes to recruiting. Okay, let's move down to the Big 12. Right now, it looks like it's between me and Jason Freeman up in the north. Missouri off to a rough start, may not even get to a bowl. And then in the south, right now, anybody's race between Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Texas. So realistically, how do you see this one finishing up?
I think you're like a top 25 team or so. So I'm going to pick Freeman to come out of the north. The South's tough though. Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M are all very good. I'm surprised to see that many losses from them. But I guess I'm going to go with Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and then probably Nebraska to the national championship game.
Well, this is kind of the thing about Nebraska. I think if you were to ask Freeman right now, how do you feel about your team? I think his answer would be, I feel great. It feels like when I finally got California running, that's what this team feels like. And you kind of look at Nebraska, he's got all the right pieces in place. He's got his quarterback.
He's in his fourth season. I didn't even realize it's been that long.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, like, everything about this team's starting to click. Linebackers look great. His secondary, maybe the weakest part of his team, but even there, he's got a lot of depth. So I like Nebraska a lot. I do think he's going to beat me, and that one may honestly get ugly. I feel good about what I've done so far. But I don't know that I can go toe-to-toe with Nebraska. That's a different level. Okay, so I'm in agreement with you. I think it's going to be Nebraska and Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, and I think Nebraska will win that. All right, let's go to the Big East right now. This conference starting to look better than it did a couple of days ago. We're up to 4 ranked teams, 2 of which are capable of getting to level 5 bowls, Syracuse and Rutgers. They are, however, in the same division, both undefeated right now. So, Chris, you played Syracuse and Pete. What makes that team so tough?
It's Pete. It's actually a pretty cool combination because I think Z32 is one of the best recruiters in D1.
Agreed. Yes.
And I think Pete is the best game planner in the game. So you've got a bunch of Z32 players, and then Pete came and just finished it off. I mean, he's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I tell you, Pete, it's not just that he's the best game planner. He is the best halftime adjustment. Like, he does a better job making halftime adjustments than anybody I have ever seen before. And that was the one thing that got me when I played him in 1AA. There was one season in the championship game, he was on his Jacksonville State run. I had him down at the half, and he just destroyed me in the second half. Now you look at the schedule, rest of the conference play should be winnable, and then he finishes last 2 games are Rutgers and Connecticut. And that's the next team I want to talk about is UConn. They also sit in that East Division with Rutgers and Syracuse. Can they potentially play spoiler and work their way into the conference championship?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think GT's got the talent level that he would wish for yet, but I know his game plan pretty well, and it's very, very solid. And I think he can beat anybody. It's just I think he's probably got less talent than he thought he would at this point.
Right.
He's in his 4th year too. But no, that's really interesting with those 3 up there. Then you got Husker and the Grunt Boy. That's a great division.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well, and 2, I mean, this is the thing about Syracuse or Rutgers. So they both are capable, I think, of playing in the championship game. But one of those teams, Temple, West Virginia, somebody like that, could come up with one really nice game and knock one of those teams off. They're capable of doing it, and we know how good West Virginia can be. Interesting thing about Syracuse, Rutgers, and Connecticut is all 3 of those teams don't play each other until the last 3 games of the season, and then they're all going to hit each other. So that's going to be a wild finish there. All right, so in the West, it looks like to me it is between DePaul and South Florida. Who would you favor between those 2?
Well, they haven't played yet, right? They play tonight or tomorrow. I like South Florida. I actually would have picked the coach at DePaul for Coach of the Year last year. I thought he did a brilliant job.
I did too, yeah. Mitt's a good guy.
I think Ebel's going to win that. And, although Osbald's always kind of a spoiler too, so maybe he can slip in there and turn Louisville around and save a season by going the title game.
Yeah. Well, again, this is the crazy thing about Wilkinson. I don't think Louisville. Well, I don't know that Louisville is going to make it to a bowl game. They're right now 2-6, so he has to win out, which would include beating Marquette, DePaul, and South Florida, and I don't know that he can do that. That's it. Like, Osbald is a really good coach in this game. He's got 4 conference championships in Wilkinson, 13 national championships overall, and 127 conference championships overall. So this is a coach that other places does a lot of winning, and here he's a couple seasons away from getting canned. He's a good coach. All right, let's shift down to the Big Ten.
But he's also capable of winning out.
Yeah, he is. That's very true. He could win out and save his job status. All right, let's go to the Big Ten, which right now looks like between the Big Ten and U, this could be the best team right now in the country. It looks like that South Division between Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Penn State could potentially decide one of the title contenders. Who would you favor in that South Division between those three?
Well, we've already kind of talked about that. So Penn State, I think, is a shade better than Notre Dame, and I think they're both better than Ohio State, but Ohio State's still capable of pulling off a win against them.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you think Ohio State's certainly capable of beating one or both of those teams and making it to the championship?
Yes, despite laying an egg against you, I think they could pull off a win against either one of those teams.
All right, so let's shift to the North, which is Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. These are a lot of fun teams that feel like they're really, really good, but not necessarily in that top tier. That's why I don't have them in my top 10. I said I think Michigan's really close to my top 10, but not quite there. Out of these 3 teams, which one is your favorite?
I think Michigan, but didn't Wisconsin beat them last year? Isn't that how it went?
Yes, they did.
But Wisconsin's quarterbacks are really young. So
Wisconsin won the Big Ten last year.
Yeah, but now they're starting a sophomore quarterback, so I kind of like Michigan.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Michigan's certainly the favorite out of this one. Wisconsin, by the way, is good. They've played absolutely no one besides Louisville and Notre Dame. They did put up 63 on Louisville, so that's nice. But I think when they play Minnesota tomorrow, that's a big Big Ten game, by the way. That is a huge game, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And then they're going to play Michigan later on in the season. I don't know that Wisconsin, with that sophomore quarterback, can get through that. All right, so you and I both kind of agree. This one's between Notre Dame and Penn State for the conference, and Penn State's probably a slight favorite there.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift to the CUSA, which I think is the most interesting non-elite or non-power conference. You've got 2 ranked teams, Memphis and Central Florida, and then you've got UAB, which is right on the edge of those rankings, and you've got Houston, who's 3-0 in conference play, and I think if you consider everything, maybe the best team in the conference. Where do you see this one falling as we get through the rest of conference schedule?
It's pretty interesting because I remember early in the out of conference that UAB was ranked in the top 10, and then once they got into conference, and usually that's the opposite of what happens. Usually, when they get into conference, a team that's undefeated will continue to beat up on their conference foes.
Right. But now they're 1-2
in the mid majors. If they can get through their out of conference, they're usually good.
Right.
But this one, he got into conference and got a couple losses. So
yeah.
I'm not too familiar with them. I know Houston, and I know they have plenty of talent. I'm looking at Central Florida right now. I don't think they have enough talent to win that conference. And Memphis, yeah, I think Houston's got the best team there. Memphis has actually got some nice tools there, but I think Houston should go through their conference and win out.
Well, Memphis, by the way, Memphis gave Florida a real game. I mean, that was at the end of the quarter. It was a 10-point game. And then early in the fourth quarter, Memphis cut the lead down to 3. So, I mean, like, you look at the final score and it says 47-23, yet in the fourth quarter it was 23-20 at one time. So, I mean, like, Memphis can play. That's a really good team. I would not be surprised at all if they ended up winning this thing, but I also think Houston, not being discussed as much right now because they don't have the strength of schedule and they're not undefeated, is probably the best team in the conference.
Yeah, and they lost to Buffalo and DePaul, which I mean that doesn't fare well for him nationally, but he should win. He should come in and win his conference.
Right. Now they did lose that one to Buffalo by a point. So Memphis also played Buffalo, and Memphis did beat Buffalo 47-20. So the like opponents there between Houston and Memphis. I actually look at Memphis, Chris. I'm kind of impressed with this team. Smoked Georgia. I mean, didn't just beat them. They smoked Georgia 37-3. Like, that's I know Georgia's not one of the best teams in the SEC, but that's still a nice win.
Yeah, especially for a mid-major. I mean, yeah, he beat Buffalo pretty big. Like I said, I was just looking at the roster. This is the first time looking at it, and I kind of like his roster. Yeah, he could probably hold his own a little bit in the big, I don't know, ACC or something, Yeah. But, yeah, he might give True Devil some problems, but I'm going to still favor Houston to win it. The overall talent on the Houston roster is much better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going to take Houston to win the CUSA. That, to me, is the best mid-major conference. Let's shift to another mid-major, the MAC. This one, to me, I think it's pretty obvious. It's between Buffalo and Central Michigan at this point, and I think Buffalo is far and away the better team. Now, Central Michigan did beat Oregon State, and they beat Marquette. Those are 2 decent wins. Their one loss was a 6-point loss to Fresno State. Look at the MAC, Chris. I think this one is probably Buffalo's to lose.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I remember when Chris had some BCS. Yeah, he was at Virginia for a little while. East Carolina, he actually did a really good job. Was there for a long time, but he's been hiding up there in Central Michigan for some time. I almost forgot all about this guy. Yeah,
no, he's had some really, really good seasons, and then he's had some weird off seasons. Like when he should have stayed at ECU because he did a great job there. When he left for Virginia, that's when he kind of started falling apart.
Yep.
And he's built up the Central Michigan team and doing a very nice job with them. I will be interested if he gets to play Buffalo in the MAC championship because I do think these are 2 well-coached teams. And Buffalo, not afraid to schedule anybody. He went all human and non-conference, as I think you should if you're a mid-major team. Lost to Central Florida in a close one, blown out by Memphis, and then lost to Fresno State by a point. Also beat Houston and beat Utah State. But I do think Buffalo is probably the favorite in the MAC. Okay, let's shift over to the Pac-10, back to some major conferences here. Only 3 ranked teams in the Pac-10, Washington, USC, and UCLA. Chris, I gotta say, I think USC is far and away the favorite to win here.
Yeah, UCLA's having a great season. Who'd they play, though? Let's see. They played rebuilding Maryland and a underachieving Louisville. So
yeah, and Louisville was just a 2-point win.
Mm-hmm. But they got into conference, and they had a 5 overtime thriller against Husker Fan and Cal.
A great game yesterday. I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah, and then beat some okay teams, Washington State and BYU. So yeah, he's still got to prove himself, and the only opportunity he's really going to get to do that is versus USC. So, I mean, if he takes out USC, all accolades to him, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, well, this is one of those teams right now. They're ranked 12th in West. I think they're going to start falling down pretty soon because they're going to play 70th ranked Air Force tomorrow. By the way, that's also a tough team. Even with first season coach Carolina Blue, it's a weird offense, weird defense. That's not a gimme win. Even if they win it, though, hurts your strength of schedule, and then you're going to hit Arizona. You also have to factor in what are Toledo, SMU, and Cincinnati going to do, because those were 3 non-conference teams he played, and those were Sims. So if they continue to lose and Maryland and Louisville drop some games, UCLA, even if they keep winning and they finish this thing off 12-1, they could really fall down the rankings here.
Yeah, but I think they'll probably, if they're probably going to beat everyone except for USC, and then it's probably a coin flip versus Stanford. If they can beat Stanford, they'll actually probably end up with a decent ranking, probably a level 3 or better ball.
Yeah. Well, USC tomorrow has to play Stanford. This is the one team, Chris. I've got them number 1, but I do feel like they could be a little overrated here. Now, I know they blew out Notre Dame. Some of that, I think, is CFB fan is a little bit home run or strikeout type with his game plans, and in that one he just kind of struck out. So I look at USC, it right now appears to be the best team in the country, but tomorrow, let's say they were to play Penn State, would you pick USC to win that one?
Yeah, I probably would. I mean, they played in the title game last year with a sophomore quarterback.
That's
Everybody's
true.
older and better now. I mean, they just reloaded at the places they lost seniors. They've got 6 upperclassmen offensive linemen. Basically, their entire starting defense is upperclassmen. Their starting DBs are all seniors. I mean, that's a championship team. It's going to be interesting if they win out. Like I said, I think they'll probably end up playing Freeman unless something weird happens.
Agreed. The interesting thing about USC is, by the way, that would be a fantastic championship game, a rematch between those two. Interesting thing about USC, even with the loss of Freeman several seasons ago, USC has not won the Pac-10 since season 131. And that was between now, season 138 and 126. That's their only Pac-10 championship. So this team has not been able to win the conference for a while. This would be the first time in several seasons that they have been able to do that. But good luck to them. I do think USC looks like the best team in the country right now. Let's move over to the SEC, which looks to be doing very well. Now, only
I know all
three.
about the SEC.
Only 3 teams are ranked in the top 25, but you do have 2 sitting right there, South Carolina and Tennessee, trying to get in. You've also got some interesting teams here between Georgia, I think is tough, Arkansas is tough, and Ole Miss, I don't think is a gimme either. Where do you go right now in this conference? I know you like yourself, but is LSU for real? Can Florida hang with some of these tougher teams?
Yeah, they're top 10 teams. They can play with anybody. Look at Florida's out of conference schedule.
Oh yeah, no, he went nuts.
Mowed right through it. There's tough coaches in there. Abel, Hypnotoad, Bad Axe. Played that Memphis team that we like and beat them 47-23. Husker 111, who's always tough, had great success at 1AA.
Smoked Missouri.
Yeah. I mean, his loss is in overtime to LSU, who's a top 10 team.
Yeah. Well, and that was on the road, and you know how much that means in West.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so between you and LSU, you're in the Western Conference. I believe it's between you and LSU for that division. Which one of those would you pick? Put bias aside for a minute. Who do you think would be the favorite there?
I think it's a coin flip. I've got a nice streak going against him right now. If I can pull up the schedule, it'll tell me how we've done.
I wish you could see like past results against a specific coach.
Well,
like just the score.
It'll show the record. I'm
right.
7-2 against him, and he won his first 2 in the first 2. So that means I've won 7 in a row.
Okay.
I believe that's the way it's gone down. So
now, could a team like Ole Miss perhaps play spoiler and knock off either one of you?
I don't think Ole Miss could right now. Maybe in the future, if I'm worried about anybody, it's Arkansas. They played me close twice already, and he's in a rebuild.
Yeah. But he's right now sitting at 0-3 in conference play. Lost to Georgia, smoked by Tennessee, and actually gave Florida a run for their money today. Only lost that one by 14. Non-conference play, he beat Hawaii, beat Temple, and beat Pitt by 10.
He played last year, other than my fluke loss to Notre Dame. Arkansas played me closer than anybody. He was my toughest one. So,
well, in this team right now, like if you look at this team, it's a fairly young team as far as their roster goes. I mean, their second best running back is a redshirt freshman. Their quarterback is a redshirt sophomore. They've got their best linebackers are freshmen and sophomores. And same thing with their secondary. It's like this is a team that I think 3 to 4 seasons they're going to be brutal to play in that SEC. All right, let's travel up east. I think it's between Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee. I think it's really a crapshoot between those 4 teams. If you had to pick one tomorrow, where would you go?
I'd probably go Florida, but I don't think it's a crapshoot between 4 teams. I think it's a 3-team. I don't think Georgia has enough fuel in the tank to take out any of those guys. But
the thing I like about Georgia is that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Joseph Coleman. His guess rating is right there around a 78. And he's got 2 fantastic receivers to throw to and a good offensive line behind him. Like, I don't know that defensively they can hang with anybody, especially that secondary, but that's an awfully good quarterback to have.
Yeah, he's good. I don't think he's ready to take out any of those 3 above him. The good news is he's got 6 wins, and he's got a sim on the schedule. He probably beats Vandy. He's going to a bowl, I hope. So
yeah,
he
should be right around. I think he'll end up right around 8 to 9 wins, and that's going to be a good season for him. He did get smoked.
I'm thinking we're going to get 8 teams in bowls, and that makes me very happy.
Well, I think so. You're probably looking at anywhere between 60 to 65,000 in recruiting money.
That's all I need, brother.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about the SEC. It's mostly the SEC fighting against other SEC teams, right?
No.
I mean, you get some Big 12 action, you get some ACC action.
I get Florida State up in my grill every season, and he's actually been taking it to me. So sooner or later, I'm gonna have to pay him back. I got him on the schedule next year, so hopefully I'll pay him back on the field. But I'd like to win one of those recruiting battles now and then too. You know. I've been squaring off with Auburn a little bit. And then LSU's always a pain in the butt.
That Tennessee job, Dean Horvey right now, 5-3, and a lot of potential here that job could open up within the next couple of seasons, right?
Well, he's little to no jeopardy, so sure, there's that potential. He's a good coach, and he's got a good team. Just maybe doesn't have as much time to spend on it right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he drops, this is the thing, if he were to drop 2 more games in between South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, it is certainly, that is certainly a scenario he could be looking at. He'd be 8-5, and I think that puts him into a level 2 bowl, perhaps. That, I think, drops him down to in jeopardy. So, let's just throw a hypothetical at him, and I'm not going to say this to jab at Dean Horvey, and I like Dean, but let's say this job does open up. Who would be the top 5? We don't need 5, but give me the top 3 candidates to replace him at Tennessee in a couple seasons.
If you're saying nobody leaves an elite, is that
nobody leaves an elite?
Nobody leaves an elite. I would say Z32 and Pete are definitely right there.
Okay,
those are probably your top 2, just off the top of my head.
Yeah. The only thing about Pete is I don't know that I could definitely see Z doing it. I don't know that Pete would leave Syracuse.
I'm pretty sure Z would leave for an elite, but you're right. Pete might stay.
Yeah. I mean, I could honestly see Pete dropping back to 1AA at some point in the next 10 to 20 seasons.
Right. And then I think you and Paul Suberlack are right there.
Okay. And Paul's a good coach. I consider me.
Did he
Paul
win Coach of the Year last year? Who won it? It was Paul, wasn't it?
I think it would have had to been Paul. I mean, he won the Big Ten. I believe it was.
Paul and Mitt, for me, were like neck and neck. And there were some other good candidates too. But
well, Paul's recruiting well there too, which is amazing because he's got another in-state human coach team, and like Wisconsin, it's a good job if there's nobody else there, but when you've got another human there, there's just not enough recruits to go around. And he's done a very good job putting that roster together. All right, let's go to the Sun Belt, which definitely has some interesting teams. First one being Navy, right now ranked 11th in the country. Do you buy this as a top 15 team? Because if this stays, they could get into a level 5 bowl.
I don't think he's a top 15 team. He's a good coach and he's a good mid-major, but let's see, who did he beat? He lost to Washington, which is a very solid program. He did beat DePaul.
That's a nice
Central
one.
Florida. Then he just rolled through 3 humans in his conference, and he's got all Sims left, so he's not going to lose again. So I don't buy him as top 15, top 25 maybe, and not top 15.
Macbeth over at Troy State in his second season.
His team is so young right now.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing right now that he's sitting there at 7-1.
Right. Let's see.
And his only loss is a 3-point loss to Navy.
He has 4 juniors on the team.
Wow.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seniors. So he's got 15 upperclassmen. If he stays at Troy State in 2 years, who wants to play him when his 20-something class are seniors?
Yeah, I don't think I want that on my schedule either.
Nope.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. You ever run into him in recruiting? Because he's right there in your backyard.
Yeah, last year when he had all the scallies, he jumped on a really, really nice DB early that I wanted, and I didn't battle for him because I had too much other stuff going on.
Do you talk to him much at all?
No, I've reached out to him in the past when I've needed help, and he's always been real friendly and helpful. But I don't really talk to him much. Last time I talked to him was because he had this was probably a calendar year ago, maybe a little longer. He had a running back, and he was at Colorado State in some world. I don't even remember which one it was. It might have been Leahy. And this was the best running back I'd ever seen, and he won a national title there. And I'm just like, dude, I've never seen a running back like that before. And it was like the number 1 running back in the recruit class for D1, and he was sky's the limit too. So he ended up with all like 95s and 96s, and yeah. So Freeman had that sky's the limit guy a few years back in Colorado, well, a few seasons back at Cal, and I reached out to Ben and said, did you save that guy? And he sent me a picture of him just to compare him to Freeman's. And as good as Freeman's was, this guy still smoked him.
Wow. That's crazy. All right, let's finish off with the WAC. Fresno State coming in at 8-0. 10th in the country. I have been hating on this team all season long. I don't think they're for real at all. They've got a 3-overtime win to Utah State, close win against Central Michigan. I think they're good, but come on. This can't be a top 10 team, right?
No, it's not. I don't think it's top 25 team, but, hats off to Dean. He played 5 humans.
Yeah.
He did exactly what he's supposed to do.
Absolutely.
He's in the WAC. He can't control his competition out there. And he did beat UTEP's done a decent job. I think he has trouble getting by Hawaii, but he did exactly what he's supposed to do. He put 5 humans on a schedule, and he beat them all. And I mean, Buffalo's a real win.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good win.
And I mean, he beat Auburn, who's a BCS team. So I mean. He's done exactly. This is the blueprint. If you go to a mid-major, this is how you do it. Just do exactly what Dean did.
Oh, completely agree with that. And two, by the way, I think Akron is actually a nice win of his. I mean, Akron's got a really good coach, and I know he's got 4 losses. Those are 4 close losses to human coach teams, and all good teams. So I know that does not look like a great game, but for Fresno State to win that one, like that to me is actually a really nice win to beat them by 19, because that's a good team. All right, so Fresno State looks good. What do you make of this Hawaii team? They're the other team in that West division of the WAC.
Well, BJ's a good coach, and what I like about him, he's always helpful in the forums. Beginner coach has a question, BJ's usually on there and gives them a solid answer. He's got really good talent. Pete put that team together. I mean, for Hawaii, that's outstanding talent because it's so hard to get people to go there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
I mean, this is a team that could.
I think he might beat Dean, or he'll at least give Dean a game. He had a tough out of conference schedule because he didn't make it. You know how it is, especially in Wilkinson, when you got a human roster that's sim. Everybody jump on board for that win. You know.
Well, I mean, good gosh, look at this schedule: Arkansas, Ole Miss, USC, LSU, South Florida. Right. I mean, that is
everybody
just
looking
brutal.
for their quality win, you know?
Yeah. Wow. All right. Any closing thoughts, Chris?
Yeah. Were you going to send that PayPal or, pay me in Bitcoin? How are you going to pay me?
What am I paying you for? I'm still confused.
My appearance. I mean, I don't think anybody listens to your show unless I show up.
Well, we're sponsored by Buyers Auto, so I would hope that your lack of payment would suffice.
Lack of payment. Anyways, hey, Crondon had a good show. Can we get him back?
Yeah, bring him on back. Crondon is welcome on this podcast at any point.
He had his own, you know. Why doesn't he start again? What's holding him back? I think as an investigative reporter, you ought to find out. Need a little more content, Wilkinson, you know?
Big J journalism there. That's what I'll do. Send him a Big J journalism site mail and see what's going on.
Oh, Wisconsin, jeez. Anyways, there's a good football game on TV right now. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I've been out of football since Duke beat Northern Illinois. That's all I needed to have happen. Duke's got a really good football team, by the way. But by the way, like I'm looking at some of these teams next season. Like some of these are going to fall open. So like Duke and Wis is actually going to open up next season. Let's see, BYU, not quite yet. I've always had this theory, though, that if I wanted to move up into 1A, what I would do is instead of taking a sim coach team, I would sit and wait for one of these human coach teams to fall because you're getting a team with a much better roster. Is that kind of a good thought process if you're a 1AA guy?
Yeah, absolutely, especially the way Wilkinson is now. Very competitive, tons of good coaches. So it's much tougher to keep your job, and if you get a head start by having a full roster, even if they're just average players, it's better than taking over what a sim gets at this point. With how many coaches do we have in D1?
Oh, we are sitting at, hold on just a second. Oh gosh, I think it's like 76 or something.
Yeah, so what's a sim team look like
74?
after 76 guys try and fill their teams, you know?
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, listen, Chris, appreciate you coming on. You're great as always. I wish the best of luck to you rest of your season, unless you play Colorado.
I'd like to play Colorado. I'd love to get you in a bowl, as long as it's level 5, because, I don't want to drop below that.
We'll be in a level 5 bowl. Bank on it.
Wow. Betting man.
Appreciate you coming on.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Thank you, too. That was Awags, fantastic as he always is. I do appreciate him coming on tonight's podcast. All right, let's see if we've got anything happening in the chat. A lot of you guys talking about Crondon. Let's see. Looks like Cass is asking for offensive feedback from Awags. So Awags, if you're back to listening to this, he wants your feedback for his offense. Let's see. Been some pretty good bowl games lately. They're coming from Just a Guy. It's EKU on a roll. Houston clearly underrated from TD. Let's see what we've got happening in Windable. We are over an hour, by the way. I don't buy Youngstown State, like, at all. Youngstown State played Savannah State today. That was a sim team. They won that one by 10. They beat Florida International yesterday by 31. That is a good team, not a great team. Coached by our coaches right now is rebuilding. They did smoke Eastern Kentucky. That's a nice one. That's their only one. I cannot figure out Stearns. Stearns 9 to me is like the complete anomaly in WIS. He has succeeded in every other world he has been in, and he is recruited as well as any other world he's been in at Youngstown State. Yet, in Wilkinson, he cannot get through playoffs. And by the way, like, I know Wilkinson is you can say, well, Wilkinson's a different level, and I totally get that. I agree with that. I invented that phrase. Totally get it. But you cannot ignore the talent, the coaching talent that is in some of these other worlds. Like Rockney's got some real talent there. I think Heisman's got some real talent. So it's like, some of these other worlds also have good coaches. And Stearns 9 has been great everywhere he's gone. And just once he gets in the playoffs here, it's like he can't do anything. Last season, a first round exit. The 3 seasons before that, a second round exit. He's got 1 conference title since season 131. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. But that's the one team. They're ranked number 1 right now. They're going to fall a little bit. I don't buy them as a 1 seed. They're good, not great. I think, by the way, I've got Texas Southern 1. I think Marist might actually be the best team in the country. Keep an eye on Orange Pace. He will be most vulnerable in those first 2 rounds because he's just not as good on weekends. He knows that. I've said it before. He's not as good on weekends. But if he gets through the second round, if he gets into quarterfinals, I think Marist probably wins it all. That's my one take. All right, I appreciate, again, Awags coming on. He was fantastic, as he always is. Appreciate you guys listening. I don't know when we'll be back. I try to do this when I can. Tonight had the time. Don't know that I will have it next weekend, but we will try and do it at some point again soon. Always great to have you all here. This is the Wilkinson Central Show. Have a great night.
There's nothing left to say. I know